Okay, chapter 10 is fourth conjugation verbs and a subclass of the third conjugation called I stems or IO third conjugations. Conjugations are a category of spelling, right? So, again, no difference in meaning. This is a category of spelling. And the textbook gives you a third conjugation IO, and a fourth conjugation all at the same time. And I get why they do this, and I get why they teach you these things at the same time, because the I class third conjugation and the fourth conjugation look the same for most of the forms you know. So it makes sense why they present these things together. But I think it's really worthwhile to understand these things separately and the processes that are actually giving you those forms. Let me explain. Uh, we've let's just go back to just having four conjugations. You have first conjugations have the thematic vowel A. Second conjugations have the long E. And that long E sticks around in the forms. So habeo, habes, habet. That long E is going to stick around. This is important because fourth conjugations have a long I. And like that long E, the I is going to stick around. What this means concretely, the obvious example of this, is the first person singular habeo, that E stays there next to the O. As opposed to third conjugations, like ago, where you do have I's and E's that come along, right? But not in that first person singular. It's just ago. It disappears. Ago, agis, agit. You get the I then in the present, and then ages, aget for the future. But the short E disappears. It reduces to an I. It goes away. Okay, so fourth conjugation is the long I. So if you spot one of these in the dictionary, it's going to look like this: audio, audire, right? The infinitive, that second form you're given, the second principal part, has a long I before the RE. And the fourth conjugation then is going to keep this I. So audio, audis, audit, audimus, auditis, audiunt. You get the I sticking around. It's nice because, as we talked about, the third conjugation and the second conjugation can be distinguished, can be recognized if you remember that first principal part, audio or habeo, that there's an E in front of the O. Likewise, fourth conjugations are nice and easy to spot because they have an I that sticks around in front of that O in that fourth principal part. The future then is going to behave much like more than I wanted to erase. The future is going to behave much like the third conjugation, except for our long I, right? So the long I is going to stick around. So for the future, you get au, you get your stem, au, d, auds, right? Auds or audiet. You're getting that E showing back up, right? So like the third conjugation, audis, audit, audimus, the present is just this I, just sticking around, and you're adding your endings. So for the present, you just sub out your personal endings for where the O is. So ost musticint goes right here, audis, audit, audimus. Here, we don't use be, like the first and second conjugation. You use this E to form the future. But the E shows up next to this I. So what are the pieces here? Here's your stem, audi. Here's your future, infix. I guess that's what's going on. I suppose you could actually say, here's your stem, here's your thematic vowel, here's your future, and here's your personal ending. And again, like the third conjugation, these are mostly predictable and normal, except that first person singular, which is borrowed from the subjunctive. Audiam. You get am out of nowhere for the first person singular future. Audiam. Like so. Audiam. Okay, so hopefully that's not too tough. It functions just like the third conjugation, except it's got this long I that sticks around. The imperfect is formed audiebam, audiebas. So you get IE, which I suppose the IE together here is functioning like a like the thematic vowel. So IE, and then you have your imperfect infix followed by your OST mustus endings, except of course it's MST mustus endings. So au, dia, bot. Okay. That's super recognizable. Nothing tricky there. Just a new thematic vowel spot for the fourth conjugation. Okay, so that's conceptually not too difficult. The third conjugation, I stem, is, I think, best understood as exactly what I described, as just another third conjugation verb with an I in the stem. Specifically, with an I as the last letter in the stem. And if you treat this just like every other third conjugation, so like habeo, but instead of hab for the stem, you have copy for the verb to take. You treat this like your stem, and then just do the normal third conjugation stuff, you get almost all the right answers, right? So you get, for the future, it's just copiam, copies, copiet, that E that shows up in the third conjugation for the future, it's there. The only place this is weird, or the main place this is weird, is in the present, because you have, this is your stem, and then you're supposed to reduce that E to an I, right? And then add your personal endings. And so you might expect copy it, and this is wrong. The double I goes away, and you just have capit. So you have capio, capis, capit, capimus, capitis, capiunt. So you just lose the double I. But otherwise, this behaves pretty much normally. The other place I guess there's a little bit of weirdness going on is that E shows back up in the imperfect. So again, you have the copia ba. You've got your stem that ends in an I, kind of bleeding over here into the thematic vowel, i.e. bleeding over, and then you have very distinct infix for the imperfect and your personal endings at the end. Okay, two new forms, but I don't think these are very challenging. I think this is actually much easier than the third conjugation. Fourth conjugations are recognizable by their long I in the infinitive, which perseveres, so it shows up in front of the O in the first person singular, capio, capire. Sorry, audio, audire. Those are fourth conjugations. And that I sticks around in front of the future, and that I sticks around along with an E in front of the imperfect. So audio, I am hearing, audiebam, I was hearing, audiam, I will hear. The third conjugation I is just another third conjugation verb that happens to end in I, which pretty much behaves normally, except where you'd expect an I to show up, phone call, that goes away.